Good evening. The cleanup continues from a massive ice storm over the weekend that downed trees and power lines, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without power.
Tonight, some of those still in the dark while communities work to clean up the mess left behind. We start our coverage tonight in Barrie with CTV's Sean Leathong. Sean, what's the latest from where you are?
Well, Nathan, you can see the street behind me, and this could be almost any residential street in Barrie today. There's tree branches around everywhere. Schools have been closed today, and as you said, many people still waiting for the power to come back on. Branches down, power out. And now the work begins from a weekend ice storm hitting much of Ontario.
Well, it got bad Friday night, and we lost a lot through the night, and then Saturday as the day went on, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse till basically every tree fell that could fall.
Over 48 hours, freezing rain building up along trees like this street in Barrie. Eventually, those branches started coming down.
Watching a slow motion train wreck, because it happened over about 48 hours, just crash, boom, crash, boom, crash, boom.
Yeah, it's quite the phenomenon, just watching branches drop in every single direction and wonder if they're going to land on somebody's car, land on somebody's house.
This house in Northwest Barrie is covered after branches fell from a century-old tree in the front yard.
Scary. We were all wondering, is this going to go through the roof? Are we protected? Are we safe?
Today, Irene Spalvieri is taking pictures for her insurance and trying to find help to remove the branches.
I'm phoning different companies to try and get the roof fixed, but everybody's busy dealing with this.
Across the city, crews are working to restore power while residents work to assess the damage.
That's part of my woodlot there.
Joseph Chakrilas had trees crash through the fence in his yard. He says all they could do was hunker down and wait while trees fell.
Do you guys have power right now?
We don't have power.
Any idea when it's coming?
It's supposed to be Wednesday.
According to Hydro One, as many as 360,000 customers had been affected by early Monday, as states of emergency were declared in Orillia, Muskoka, and Peterborough, while crews work, municipalities open help centers for those with prolonged outages.
48 hours with no power for many folks, and certainly devastation when it comes to our trees around the city, the roads, and the parks.
While the thaw began in Orillia today, many residents are entering their third day without power.
Oh, it's cold. It's only 12 degrees in my house.
Back in Barrie, residents are working to clear roads where city crews have yet to begin.
Just clearing off enough of the brush so that cars can get through and the school bus can get through.
The mayor here saying it could be 4 to 6 weeks before all roads are cleared. And at Let's Check with Hydro One, it says that there were 322,000 people who have been affected by this. So they have made a significant improvement, but there is still a long way to go. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Meanwhile, in the Peterborough area, thousands remain without power.
Crews continue to clean up all the damage from the weekend weather. Jessica Smith joins us in studio for more on this. Jess.
Emergency remains in place at this hour, and it really is quite challenging. Now, as recovery efforts and cleanup efforts continue, people are still working on getting their power back, and they're asked to avoid unnecessary travel if possible. The weekend ice storm that swept across much of central and southern Ontario continues to bring life to a standstill across most of eastern Ontario, in particular through the city of Peterborough and surrounding communities.
It's created a really serious, devastating situation here in the city of Peterborough.
Power outages began over the weekend, and thousands of people are still in the dark. According to Hydro One's website, the estimated time for restoration is currently 6 p.m. While for areas north and east of Peterborough, it could be as late as April 2nd at 6 p.m.
I went and checked my business this morning for hydro there, which is also blacked out, and the amount of crews cleaning up and clearing streets was fabulous to see.
Hydro One are going beyond the call of duty and bringing in crews from other parts of Ontario to restore the power as quickly as we can.
Residents are being asked to avoid unnecessary travel, with many only going out to get gas or food.
I have one son out for fuel right now for a refill. My other son is helping friends. They got hit really bad out in our Donwood, just east of the city.
With the damage to key landmarks and nature irreversible in some areas.
Peterborough is well known for having a forest canopy in our community, a good way to fight against climate change. But we lost a lot of that canopy over the last couple of days.
According to the city's website, social services are being offered in person at City Hall at their 500 George Street North location. For a full list of services and warming centers, residents are being urged to visit the city's website, peterborough.ca.
And a safety reminder from city officials for anyone using a generator to be mindful of how long it's running, because there's always a risk of carbon monoxide poisoning with prolonged use, and that having a carbon monoxide detector is important, along with monitoring how long the generator itself is on. Reporting live, I'm Jessica Smith. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Jess. Well, here in Toronto, we were spared the brunt of the storm. The story for us was more rain than ice over the weekend. And as we take a live look here in Toronto, another week upon us, the wind is notable on this gray, cool Monday. Let's bring in Lindsay Morrison for a look at the current conditions. What are you seeing, Lindsay?
Well, Michelle, the reason why that wind is of note today is because it's blowing in areas impacted by that ice storm over the weekend. And when you have already tree limbs that have been weakened from all that ice, they could come crashing down through the evening hours tonight. So widespread special weather statement in place for the areas impacted by the ice, but also ahead of another storm on Wednesday. And yes, we could be in for a little more in the way of freezing rain. We're going to talk about that in just a moment, but there's the winds now coming out of the northwest, gusting upwards of 40 kilometers per hour. Here in Toronto, the current temperature is 2 degrees. We are going to slip below freezing tonight. It is mostly cloudy out there at this hour and will be through a good portion of the evening, but we've got sunshine in the forecast for tomorrow, just in time to welcome the month of April. We need a day like this. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the return of some active weather for Wednesday, along with a temperature roller coaster later on. It's all coming up in your forecast. For now, Michelle, back to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Toronto police have arrested a man for a series of what they say were unprovoked stabbings.
And now questions are being raised about why the accused was out on bail at the time of the incidents. CTV's Janice Golding-Jones is live with all the details. Janice.
Man has been arrested in connection with a series of brutal stabbings in the city's downtown core. Attacks, Toronto police say, were completely random. For just over a week, Toronto police say a man roamed the downtown core, allegedly stabbing people he did not know.
On March 23rd, it was an underhoused man that was sleeping, and obviously unprovoked, the suspect went up to him and did stab him.
Police gathered surveillance video and began their search for a suspect, and yet the attacks kept occurring.
On March 28th, the victim was walking, and he came up from behind and then stabbed him.
Strangers being knifed between 9 p.m. and midnight in what police are calling surprise attacks.
On March 29th, the victim was at his place of work and was just out on the phone talking to somebody, and he came up from behind and stabbed him.
Yesterday, police armed with the suspect's description made an arrest, and 23-year-old Mackenzie Duncan was charged with 18 counts, including 2 charges of attempted murder and 3 counts of assault with a weapon. Beyond that, he was charged with 3 counts of fail to comply with a release order.
I can't really comment on that, but obviously it would be concerning. He's out on bail from previous charges.
In response, the Toronto Police Association renewed its call for bail reform today, saying, "Our members are disappointed but not surprised to learn that a man arrested for 3 separate random incidents of violence in downtown Toronto was already on bail for other serious charges. In fact, a judge granted bail even though he was wanted in another jurisdiction. When will this revolving door end for this person? And at what point will the safety of our communities and members come first?" According to court documents obtained by CTV News, Duncan was already facing charges in Toronto dating back to August 2024. Charges which include sexual assault, harassment, threatened death, and carrying a knife. And beyond that, in September, he failed to return to court. Meanwhile, Toronto police are warning people to be aware of their surroundings.
Be aware of what's going on around you. If you have headphones in, turn them down so you can hear what's going on around you. Don't have your face in your phone.
2 of the victims in these attacks sustained serious injuries. Now, Duncan was expected to make an appearance in a virtual bail court today. However, he never took the prisoner's box. We are told that he'll be back in court tomorrow. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Still ahead, the federal leaders were spread out across the province today, making their pitches to voters. The latest from the campaign trail coming up. But first, Ontario's Integrity Commissioner says a lobbyist who used to work for Premier Doug Ford broke rules while asking for a client's land to be removed from the Greenbelt.
CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Joanne Morris has those details.
The Integrity Commissioner has determined a lobbyist broke ethics rules while pushing to take land out of the Greenbelt for development, something he succeeded at before a government reversal. The lobbyist is Nico Fedani-Dyker, someone with a years-long bond to the Ford family. He worked in the office of late Toronto Mayor Rob Ford, moving up the street to Queen's Park when Doug Ford became premier. The province's ethics watchdog says Fedani-Dyker's first mistake was not registering as a lobbyist while working on the Greenbelt file. He also put 2 public office holders in real or potential conflict of interest by offering them tickets to a Leafs game. The opposition leader calls this deeply concerning.
I think this is also a scathing indictment of a cash for access culture within this party.
Stiles wants the Integrity Commissioner to go a step further.
Share with the people of Ontario publicly who those 2 public office holders are.
The case has spotlighted the lack of consequences for rule breakers, including those who ought to have known those rules well.
I think it's a little more serious than publishing just their names.
There are calls on the government to give the law that governs lobbying more teeth.
He should be barred from any lobbying of this government going forward. That's not going to happen, given how weak the legislation is.
The Greenbelt land removal plan remains under investigation by the Mounties. The Integrity Commissioner previously determined it was more likely than not that developers were tipped off a change was coming. The Liberal leader describes today's finding as a falling domino.
And I expect that whether the Integrity Commissioner or the RCMP investigation will lead to more of those dominoes falling.
Fedani-Dyker says he never intended to break the rules and accepts full responsibility. A spokesperson for the Premier's office says they expect anyone who advocates to the government to follow the law. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Ontario's Auditor General released a pair of special reports this morning. They outlined issues with 2 provincial ministries, including access to children's mental health services.
Those intensive services are available in Central Ontario and Eastern Ontario. So the North and the West do not have those intensive services.
It's 105 days for the most intensive treatment services. I mean, can you imagine being a parent or a child waiting 3 months to be able to get access to that kind of care? A lack of funding and an optimization of how we're using our funding is needed.
The AG report says the services were not always provided in an evidence-based, timely, equitable, and coordinated manner. The second report outlined issues with the province's water quality standards. It says the Environment Ministry does not have systems in place to oversee all non-municipal drinking water systems.
The Ford government says 9 supervised consumption sites will close tomorrow. The health minister's office says the 9 sites, which applied for funding to transition to homelessness and addiction recovery treatment hubs, are proceeding with those plans. Meanwhile, 1 consumption site in Kensington Market is choosing to remain open after a court granted an injunction allowing them to continue operating. The province is investing more than $500 million to create what it calls heart hubs, shifting away from harm reduction in favor of an abstinence and recovery-based model.
Police are investigating a stabbing in the city's West End. Officers were called to the Eglinton and Weston area just after 11 p.m. yesterday. They say a man was involved in a verbal altercation on a bus. He was later followed off the bus and stabbed. The victim was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. So far, police have not provided any information on possible suspects.
And 1 person's fighting for their life in hospital following a collision in Whitby. It happened on Highway 7 at the 412. The OPP gave an update on social media.
Right now we're dealing with a motor vehicle collision involving a passenger vehicle and a straight truck. The car is wedged under the straight truck. The driver has sustained serious life-threatening injuries and has been transported to a trauma center. Highway 7 east and westbound is going to be closed for a period of time. It is unknown how long right now. We do have our reconstruction team en route to do the investigation of the collision.
Mayor Olivia Chow helped open this year's Good Roads Conference in the city today, and she spoke about the need for collaboration when it comes to improving roads in the city and across the country.
No one can do it on their own. Not one level of government, not just one person, one company, one department. It takes all of us coming together to dialogue, to learn, to share, which is what you're doing here. This is why I love to see representatives from across the province right here. Private sector, government officials, academics, experts. So much to learn, and we always are stronger together.
The Good Roads Conference runs through Wednesday.
Starting next month, there will be new lane closures on the Gardiner as the city continues to work on repairing the expressway. The westbound lanes of the Gardiner will be reduced from 4 lanes to 3 between Park Lane and Grand Avenue starting next Monday. The reduction will allow crews to conduct repairs on 5 bridges, which is expected to take about a year to complete. The city says this part of the project will include the same acceleration which allowed the first phase to finish 4 months ahead of schedule. The measures include completion incentives and allowing crews to work up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
A note for subway riders, there is an early nightly closure on the TTC's Line 1 this week. Starting tonight, lasting through Thursday, there will be no train service between Finch and Eglinton stations from 11 p.m. onward. Shuttle buses will be running instead. This closure is to accommodate track work in the area. Lawrence and North York Centre stations will be closed, but all other stations will remain open for customers to purchase fares and connect to surface routes.
Toronto Public Health is warning about a potential measles exposure. The agency is reporting a case of measles in a person who works for the city. They say members of the public were potentially exposed to the virus on Friday, March 21st at Pizzeria Libretto, located at 155 University between 11:50 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. People were also potentially exposed on a Via train traveling from London to Toronto between 6:05 and 10:50 a.m. and a separate train traveling from Toronto to London from 4:10 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Well, Canadians go to the polls in exactly 4 weeks as the federal party leaders ramp up their pitches to voters.
Today, nation building was the focus on the campaign trail under the shadow of this week's looming U.S. tariff. CTV's Colton Prale has the details.
I support the objective. The Liberals are kicking off week 2 of the campaign with what they say is a bold new housing plan.
We're getting government back in the business of building affordable homes.
The creation of a new government entity to build affordable homes. Tens of billions in financing to builders, especially for prefabricated homes, and a pitch to cut municipal development charges in half.
Our goal is to double the pace of housing construction to almost 500,000 new homes every single year.
Meanwhile, the Conservatives unveiling their own cross-country building plan, but instead of homes, they're promising a national corridor for pipelines, railroads, and more.
Pre-approving the project would mean that the companies could invest with certainty, knowing what they have to do and what they can build. This certainty will allow the private sector to do the building.
Poilievre says if elected, his government would immediately coordinate with provinces and First Nations to create the infrastructure pathway. On the other side of the country, the NDP with a very different message on oil and gas.
They're receiving massive subsidies every year. That has to end.
Jagmeet Singh promising to axe $18 billion worth of corporate subsidies over the next decade and use that money to retrofit Canadian homes for energy-saving upgrades. The NDP also joining the Conservatives and the Liberals in saying they would axe the consumer carbon tax.
Finally, in Whitehorse today, the Green Party announced they would create a National Civil Defence Corps to protect Canadian sovereignty. Colton Prale, CTV News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, Carney was asked to explain why he has not replaced a Liberal candidate running for re-election in the riding of Markham-Unionville. Paul Chang told people at an event 3 months ago they could claim a bounty on a Conservative candidate running in Don Valley North if they turned him in. CTV's Judy Trin has that story.
Good jobs in the Liberal leader was surrounded by his Toronto regional candidates, except for Paul Chang.
This is a terrible lapse of judgment by Mr. Chang. He has apologized.
But it's now Mark Carney's judgment that's under scrutiny for refusing to remove Chang from the election. In an interview with Chinese language media in January, Chang urged people to bring democracy activist and Conservative rival Joe Tay to the Chinese consulate to collect a bounty of 1 million Hong Kong dollars.
Mr. Chang is a veteran policeman with more than a quarter century of service to his community, 28 years of defending rights in this community, and he will continue with his candidacy going forward.
But sorry isn't enough for Tay. He says Chang's comments are intended to send a chilling signal to the entire community.
I spoke to him. He's very, very rattled. These comments by this Liberal candidate may well rise to the level of criminal because they called for someone to be turned over to a hostile foreign government on a bounty.
40 democratic rights groups from around the world have now condemned Chang's remarks, demanding Carney remove him as a candidate. Hong Kong Watch is also calling on the RCMP to investigate if there's foreign interference in this case.
I think the government of Canada has not seized the opportunity to use these cases as examples to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law.
Chang made his comments in January, but they only surfaced a few days ago, which security analysts say casts doubt on the effectiveness of the Liberal screening process.
You can say you have a vetting process, but saying it doesn't mean you have a good one. What goes behind that? What goes into that? How rigorous is it? Tell us what you actually do when you're vetting a candidate.
So far, the Liberals have chosen about 300 candidates to run in a total of 343 federal ridings. The deadline to declare is just a week away, adding more pressure on the vetting process. Judy Trin, CTV News, Vaughan.
And there are new polling numbers suggesting Mark Carney and the Liberals are expanding their lead over the Conservatives.
As Prime Minister, he gets a little bit of a bump. He has an advantage, a built-in advantage, especially in the context of Donald Trump and the binational relationship.
An Nanos poll for CTV and the Globe and Mail found the Liberals are at 43.6% support. The Conservatives sitting at 36.1%. The poll indicates the Liberal boost comes from a significant shift in the crucial battleground of Ontario. The NDP at 10.5% support.
Meantime, Elections Canada is hiring more than 200,000 people for a number of temporary roles. Each position pays at least $20 an hour. Poll workers must be Canadian citizens, at least 16 years of age, and they cannot participate in political activities while employed. The main skills needed are things like basic literacy and the ability to work with others. The federal election is scheduled for April 28th, with early voting between the 18th and the 20th. Search and rescue efforts continue following Friday's deadly quake in Southeast Asia. More than 2,000 people were killed in Myanmar, where the government has declared a week-long mourning period. Nearly 4,000 others were injured, but some survivors were rescued today. In Thailand, 19 people were killed in the quake. A search goes on at a collapsed building that was under construction in Bangkok. A number of countries have sent aid and personnel to the region. The UN is rushing relief supplies to survivors in central Myanmar.
In the Gaza Strip, Israel has issued evacuation orders for most of the city of Rafah and nearby areas. Displaced people fled Gaza's southernmost city of Khan Yunis to the north. The Israeli military has indicated it could soon begin another major ground operation in Rafah. Last May, Israel conducted a sizable offensive there, leaving large parts of it in ruin. The military also seized a strategic corridor along the border, as well as the Rafah crossing with Egypt. It is the territory's only gateway to the outside world that was not controlled by Israel.
The king is returning to public duties this week. The monarch spent a brief time in hospital for observation on Thursday after experiencing side effects from his cancer treatment. He canceled some planned events at the end of last week, but a royal source says that following a restful weekend, the king traveled to Windsor Castle today, where he'll prepare for a usual working week. That will include public appearances.
SpaceX added to its high-bandwidth internet system today, deploying more than 24 additional satellites. A Falcon 9 rocket lifted off from Cape Canaveral in Florida this afternoon. On board were 28 Starlink satellites that were later released into low Earth orbit. The company says its space-based network is intended to provide worldwide internet coverage and has more than 6,300 satellites in orbit so far.
From high above to back here on terra firma, astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams hold their first news conference since their long-awaited return from a lengthy extended stay in space. What surprised them since returning home? Still ahead.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, Fraud Prevention Month is coming to a close, and police are warning about texting scams costing Canadians millions of dollars. It might look like a message from your phone company, the tax department, or the 407 highway, but they're all scams. I'll have that story just ahead.
Well, the numbers are into Environment Canada and Lindsay, Ontario, picking up 25 millimeters of ice accretion. That ice also building up, of course, in areas like Peterborough and Orillia, as we've seen. Now, we've got another low-pressure system on the way for Wednesday, and you'll notice that area of pink, more freezing rain is going to be possible in addition to heavy rainfall. It's a slightly different area that could bear the brunt of it this time. We'll take you through the forecast just ahead, and stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
95% of Canadians are online either on a computer or a smartphone, which is why scammers are constantly sending fake texts and emails.
A new survey from Equifax finds almost 9 out of 10 Canadians feel they've been exposed to fraud, and many worry they could be scammed. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Nathan and Michelle. Many of us get fake emails and texts almost every day. And while most of us delete them right away, you could accidentally click on one. The OPP and Equifax issued warnings today saying the problem is getting worse and everyone needs to be more aware.
There's hardly a day that goes by we don't get scam emails and texts, also known as smishing. Many are disguised as messages saying you have an unpaid fine, government benefits waiting for you, or a notice you need to pay a 407 bill. They're all scams designed to steal your identity and your money.
I mean, if you do use the service that you receive the text message from, you're inclined to think that it is legitimate.
An Equifax fraud survey found that 88% of Canadians feel they have been exposed to fraud, and 36% admit they have accidentally clicked on fraudulent emails or texts. 64% say identity theft is their top fraud concern for 2025.
So it's kind of difficult for a lot of consumers to discern between what's real and what might be fake and causing potential harm.
Many people are aware scammers are sending out fake texts and emails, but in a busy world, it's easy to reply to something that appears to be authentic. If you do click on a scam message, in a matter of minutes, you could be compromised.
So they might initially click on that link, not thinking about it until it's too late, and they've already provided some real personal information that can be used to take over their identity.
According to the OPP, to avoid smishing scams, don't click on links or messages from unknown senders. Delete suspicious text or emails immediately. Keep your smartphone secure and updated security software. Use multi-factor authentication for your accounts, and if in doubt, contact organizations directly. And if you get a message you're not expecting, be vigilant before doing anything.
Take your time and really assess what you're receiving and why you would be receiving it. Anything unsolicited usually should be met with a lot of caution.
And Fraud Prevention Month and sharing stories like this one are helping to get the word out about scams, but it's also a good idea to speak to them with family and friends. Canadians did lose more than $600 million to fraud just last year. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
All right, still a lot of concern about that ice storm, and I feel like in Toronto we got a lot of rain, but we were fortunate.
We were fortunate. There were some moments there where you had some trees covered in ice, and I definitely noticed a few branches that had snapped. But wow, when you look at the images outside the city, yeah, they're dealing with a lot. And hopefully the weather will cooperate this week to help as they clean up.
Yeah, pretty devastating in many areas. I know I have some family north end of Peterborough, north of Barrie, without power for a couple of days now, and probably still a couple of days to go, even though we commend all the hydro workers. This is a tall order, getting hundreds of thousands of people back on the grid. Here's the thing, the ice in many cases has now melted, but tree branches continue to fall in many areas, especially with the breezy winds that we've had today. Earlier today in Toronto, we had a few showers. It's been a mostly cloudy day. Take a look at this. This is what it looked like earlier on, but it's true compared to what many of our neighbors in other parts of Ontario have been dealing with the last couple of days. You could call it a little uneventful by comparison. We've got mostly cloudy skies right now as well. Here's a look at the current satellite and radar. I'm going to widen things out to show you that we have said goodbye to one area of low pressure. There is another that's developing at this time, and it's going to be a weather maker for us on Wednesday. Starting to see it there, but ahead of that, I'm happy to share that we are going to have high pressure at play, even if it's just for one day. It's going to make for a sunny start to the month of April tomorrow. Overnight tonight, we drop to a low near -2, -3 degrees. Wind chill -7, -8. And then here's tomorrow. In the morning, yeah, a bit of a chilly start. Look at the afternoon, though. Brilliant sunshine and a daytime high of 5. That is a little cool for this time of year, but it's okay. I think we'll take it with the sunshine. Now, we do have a widespread special weather statement in place. Technically, there are 2 in place. One for the areas impacted by the ice storm over the weekend, reminding us of these gusty conditions today that could further bring down tree limbs and power lines. We've also got a widespread special weather statement in place for this incoming storm on Wednesday. Now, for the most part, this is going to be a rain event, but heavy rain expected, maybe 30 to 50 millimeters. That's what the low pressure system is expected to do. See that area of pink? Once again, concern for at least a short period of freezing rain. It's not expected to be prolonged like it was over the weekend. There's tomorrow, beautiful blue sky. Cloud cover increases overnight. Midday Wednesday might get a little burst of flurry activity before maybe a brief period of freezing rain. And this time I'm concerned about areas north and west of the GTA, especially at that higher elevation. Some of those communities impacted over the weekend could see another brief period of freezing rain. Hopefully it doesn't last all that long. And again, we are in for some heavy amounts of rain here locally in the GTA, especially if we get some thunderstorms embedded within this system, which could happen, especially late Wednesday, overnight into Thursday. So again, a little snapshot of what we could be in for, 30 to 50 millimeters of rain. Wouldn't be surprised to see some rainfall warnings eventually get issued. And of course, we'll be watching for some flooding potential. There's the chance of some ice around Kitchener, Shelburne. We're also anticipating some very strong winds in through the Niagara region and beyond. So just a heads up on that too. Here's the 7-day forecast. Bit of weather whiplash. We go from 5 degrees on Tuesday to 18 on Thursday. Nice and mild, but still a little unsettled. Some sunshine for Friday and a high of 12 degrees. Nice way to kick off the weekend. That's your look at the forecast for now. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Also tonight, reading between the cross-border lines. Independent bookstores raise concerns tariffs will hurt their bottom line and keep books on the shelf. Stay with us. The constantly changing tariff war between the U.S. and Canada may be a page-turner for some, but for bookstore owners in this country, it's a mystery they're still trying to solve.
As CTV's Beth McDonnell reports, booksellers say they are hoping this saga ends soon.
The story is still unfolding when it comes to tariffs on Canadian books.
Everybody's in a state of anticipation. Some people are more worried than other people.
Come Wednesday, if the U.S. imposes more tariffs on Canadian goods, Canada is looking at its own retaliatory tariffs, and Canadian books are on the list. Ben McNally, an independent shop in downtown Toronto, says the book industry is like the auto sector, intertwined. Books already have 2 prices, one Canadian, the other American. And many books written in Canada are printed in the U.S., and some U.S. books are printed here.
We've got all of our books have prices on them already. So if prices go up, we're going to have to figure out some mechanism whereby we can, make that palatable to our customers.
Earlier this month, the Canadian Independent Booksellers Association, along with Indigo Books CEO Heather Reisman, expressed, quote, profound concern in a letter to the Prime Minister. We respectfully urge you to exempt books from these tariffs immediately, it said. For generations, our trade agreements with the United States have recognized the exceptional cultural and educational value of literature by keeping books tariff-free.
What we do know is that the profit margin on books is slim, and at no part of the supply chain can we absorb a 25% tariff. So devastating for publishers, devastating for booksellers, and hard to imagine that it wouldn't pretty quickly lead to an increase in book prices.
Staff at Ben McNally say it's important to figure out the tariff situation once everyone knows what it is, adding that after being in the book business since the 1970s, post-audiobooks and the COVID-19 pandemic, it is resilient.
People have been projecting the doom of the book for almost as long as I've been in business. So it's still here, we're still here, and we'll figure out some way to get books to readers. Hardcover fiction.
The federal government tells CTV News it welcomes input from stakeholders on countermeasures to U.S. tariffs, and any relief will be granted on a case-by-case basis. It's not known yet if Ottawa will turn the page on books. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
Meanwhile, a possible strike by Toronto Public Library staff has been averted. The union representing 2,300 full and part-time workers says it reached a tentative agreement with the library early this morning. Earlier this month, members had voted in favor of going on strike if contract negotiations fell apart. The deal still has to be ratified. The union has not released details, but says the agreement includes important gains for library workers. The Juno Awards were handed out in Vancouver last night, with host Michael Bublé delivering a patriotic message in his opening monologue.
We're one of a kind. We are beautiful. We are the greatest nation on earth. And we are not for sale.
Toronto rockers The Beaches won the award for Group of the Year. Anne Murray also received a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Tell me, am I insane? Is this where we belong? Is it pleasure or pain? That we're still hanging on, going out of my head. You know true love is there, but what you said got me hanging on.
And Ajax rockers Sum 41 closed the show with their final live performance. The group is disbanded following their induction into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame.
After the break, it's the baseball bat everybody's talking about, the so-called torpedo bat. They've caused a major league power surge, but should they be banned? Sports is next.
Well, it got bad Friday night, and we lost a lot through the night. And then Saturday, as the day went on, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse till, basically every tree fell that could fall.
Updating our top stories, thousands remain without power across parts of the province after a weekend ice storm. Trees and power lines were brought down, leaving communities in Barrie and Orillia in the dark for several days now. Heavy damage was also reported in the Peterborough area. Crews have been actively working to deal with cleaning up the damage and restore power.
March 23rd, it was an underhoused man that was sleeping, and obviously unprovoked, the suspect went up to him and did stab him.
A man's been charged after a series of what police say were unprovoked stabbings in the downtown core. 23-year-old Mackenzie Duncan is facing 2 charges of attempted murder and 3 counts of assault with a weapon. According to court documents obtained by CTV News, Duncan was out on bail after being charged last August with sexual assault, threatening death, and carrying a knife.
I think this is also a scathing indictment of a cash for access culture within this party.
Ontario's Integrity Commissioner has determined a lobbyist broke ethics rules while pushing to take land out of the Greenbelt for development. Nico for Danny Dyker worked in the office of the late Toronto Mayor Rob Ford before moving to Queen's Park when Doug Ford became Premier. The ethics watchdog says he failed to register as a lobbyist while working on the Greenbelt file and put 2 public office holders in a conflict of interest situation by offering them tickets to a Leafs game.
And remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video breaking news, let us know.
The trade war could get amped up this week with a key deadline now just days away. Let's get the details now for BNN Bloomberg's Morella Fernandez.
Stock markets around the world seesaw today, with Washington set to announce reciprocal tariffs on Wednesday. Donald Trump is calling April 2nd Liberation Day. Goldman Sachs expects a 15% tariff to be imposed on some of America's trading partners. And the fear about tariffs and how it will affect the greater economy has sent the markets first plunging, then reversing over the course of the trading day. So after all of that up and down, let's see where the markets ended the day. The Canadian dollar is down to 69.52 US. West Texas Intermediate is out more than $2 to 71.48. Our fix on Western Canadian Select has it down to 58.72. And the TSX is up 158 points today. Those are your business headlines in the BNN Bloomberg Newsroom. I'm Marilla Fernandez.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
The Conference Board of Canada is warning that about 160,000 people in this country could lose their job in the second quarter. It says that's due to pressure from U.S. tariffs. The research group suggests around half of the job losses would be in manufacturing. The board also says the economy could shrink by 5.4% if the tariffs and Canadian countermeasures stay in place for the entire quarter.
In sports, the Blue Jays are set to begin a series with the Washington Nationals tonight.
Single into first. Heineman gets into one. Pulls it to left, and it's gone.
The Jays are coming off a 3-1 win over the Baltimore Orioles yesterday. The victory saw the team split its series with the Orioles, going 2-2 in the first 4 games of the season. First pitch for tonight's game against Washington is set for shortly after 7 p.m. at Rogers Center.
A new baseball bat being used by the New York Yankees is drawing a lot of attention.
Driven deep to left field. He's done it again. See ya.
The Yankees hit home runs on the first 3 pitches of Saturday's game, an MLB first, and they finished the game with 9 homers in all. Some of the Yankees have been using the so-called torpedo bat. They're designed to have more wood in the sweet spot where the batter most often makes contact with the ball, giving them their distinct shape. Major League Baseball says the bat is in compliance with the rules, but some critics say the bat is akin to cheating and should be banned.
5 players and 2 coaches were ejected after a full-on fight broke out at an NBA game last night.
Man, oh, come on now. Stevens, big-time brawl now in the front row.
Oh, yes, it was a chaotic scene as the skirmish spilled into the courtside seats in the second quarter of the Minnesota Timberwolves home game against the Detroit Pistons. After a lengthy review, officials decided to remove 3 Detroit players and 2 Minnesota players. Detroit head coach and Minnesota assistant coach were also shown the door. Timberwolves won the game 123-104. Just ahead, settled in here on Earth after being stuck in space for 9 months. NASA astronauts reflect on their out-of-this-world space odyssey coming up.
Tonight, a reality check on the key campaign promises.
We can solve the housing crisis now.
We need to be able to get our resources across Canada, bypassing America.
Dueling political strategies and a sudden swing in the polls. Later on CTV National News.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight, and a special what's up to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News.
2 weeks after returning to Earth, a pair of astronauts who spent an extended stay in outer space opened up about their odyssey.
Which should have been a week became 9 months up there, but they're not mad about it.
And splashdown. Crew 9 back on Earth.
Home sweet home after 286 days in space, adjusted to gravity once again. In their first news conference since returning to Earth, Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore reflecting on their out-of-this-world ordeal.
I'm back. First and foremost, we were always coming back, and I think people need to know that, and we're back.
Responsibility with Boeing? Yes. Responsibility with NASA? Yes. All the way up and down the chain. We all are responsible. We all own this.
A lot to unpack. The pair saying they're taken aback by all the interest. Back in June, when they blasted off in Boeing's first astronaut flight, the retired Navy captains were only due to spend 8 days in space. But thrusters failed and helium leaked, forcing the test pilots to intervene in order for the Starliner capsule to reach the space station. Their ISS stay ultimately getting extended again and again.
When you push the edge of the envelope again and you do things with spacecraft that have never been done before, just like Starliner, you're going to find some things.
Engineers deciding the Starliner was a no-go to get home. SpaceX tapped for the replacement ride, but even that got stalled.
Don't worry, you are leaving station in good hands.
There's some lessons learned to it, and part of that is just resilience and being able to take a turn that was unexpected and make the best of it.
We're not going to look back and say this happened or that happened and that person's or that issue or that entity's to blame. We're going to look forward and say, what are we going to use our lessons learned from this whole process and make sure that we are successful in the future.
Readjusting to Earth is involved. They're undergoing a reconditioning program and physical therapy, but it's going well.
I actually went out and ran 3 miles yesterday.
Wilmore finally seeing his 2 daughters again.
We persevered, and they persevered.
Williams thrilled to get back to loved ones.
I wanted to hug my husband and hug my dogs, and I'll say that in that order.
You know, I can't believe how well they're taking it. They're stranded for 9 months, and they're acting like it was no big deal.
I think it's safe to say we'd all be freaking out.
I mean, if I'm delayed for an hour, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I would also want to hug my dog, so I liked hearing that
so
too.
sweet. Oh, wait, what's going on here on Earth?
All right, so we're dealing with some active weather again as we make our way through the next couple of days here. But let's recap what you need to know when it comes to tonight as well. It's all pretty calm out there, but we do have a special weather statement in effect, this issued by Environment Canada, because look at the next 3 days. Sunshine for tomorrow, very active weather for Wednesday, and then it's mild into the day on Thursday. But a reminder for Wednesday, some heavy amounts of rain and periods of freezing rain in some of the areas still cleaning up from the weekends. We're going to keep an eye on this one. Nathan and Michelle.
Well, we appreciate the update. Thank you, Lindsay. That's it for us, but you can join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with your next local newscast at 11:30.
Meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a great week.
Moving forward.